Have you ever dreamt of living in an intentional community? Many people have, but what if there was something better, like a group of independent homesteads? This is a new idea that I came across, and I want to welcome you to the Freedom Lovers Show. We're building a voluntary world, one relationship at a time. And this idea of intentional communities versus homesteads, I met this wonderful lady last year at the Exit and Build Land Summit in Texas, and we're discussing this idea because we see how cities are bad places, and we want to move out of the city and be on an independent place with our friends. And she said her family has a lot of experience. So I'm going to read her bio here. But first of all, I want to welcome Chantara to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, you have a dynamic story and amazing bio, which I'm going to read here for the listeners. Chantara is a fashion designer, musician, and teacher. Unschooled since the age of 7, she was encouraged to follow her passions to mastery. She sold her first Aloha shirt at age 10, took her first teaching job at 12, and launched her design line at age 17. Growing up, Chanterelle was an active participant in building organic gardening, holistic health, and animal husbandry on the family homestead. Her website is chanterellecouture.com. We'll put that in the description. So this is a very exciting conversation, Chanterelle. And yeah, when we met there in Texas, we really hit it off about the unschooling part, because we believe in voluntary learning and pursuing your passions and not being forced or coerced into any type of learning assignment, which is, probably part of your success. You got to follow what you enjoy doing. And we recommend all mothers and fathers encourage their children to do that. But the question today is an intentional community versus a homestead. And you had some really amazing insights that I'm so glad we get to hear them now. Why don't you start off with the beginning, where maybe I was saying, hey, intentional community, live together. And you said, my family tried that. And that was a great beginning. So why don't you share a little bit about your family's experience and your experience with the intentional community and with the homesteads?
So my parents have been environmentalists, and my mom had an organic blueberry farm in Maine. My dad was a solar, wind, healthy home builder. We were from Maine originally. And my parents had a lot of land back in Maine. They wanted to create community. They did some testing. We had some people, trying to make it work. And it was very hard to track what they were looking for in central Maine. But we did have, there's a beautiful community, but the deeper intentional community that they were looking for wasn't happening. So that sent us on a journey, actually a vacation to Hawaii, from which we never returned from. We're still here 25 years later. Yes. And starting the same dream here of how to do it. And we've had a series of experiences, from starting off caretaking here, because Hawaii is a very different economic thing than Maine, and starting on land we didn't own, that we were on somebody else's, into when we did own it and we were doing it the other way. We've had a lot of people come through here trying this idea, and I can elaborate on all of those things, but just the little overview is like, we went through all these paths. And what I've come to conclude from all of those years is that the gift and the beauty of a family homestead is each of you is sovereign. And one of the problems with intentional community is the difference in how it is for people to root in, to give their everything, to have their sovereignty, to feel what the land is asking of them, and to make those choices. If it's all communal, you don't have that sovereignty, which is also what our country is built on as a constitutional republic. And I think that is one of the key things of why a family homestead, where everyone is their homesteads, but you have this community of you all work together. Like, it's really the old village style. Somebody needed a barn raised, everybody went over and built the barn. If it was a harvest of this crop, everybody goes over there. You don't do it in specific hours. It's just as a need base. Everybody knows everyone will show up as it's needed. And so we're trying to recreate a vision of that, where everyone has their independence, their sovereignty, the knowing that they can pour their life and soul into that land, and it's theirs in continuity for their children and grandchildren, etc. But they still have that community around them of support and shared values. And that has been my takeaway of what works best.
Amazing. Yeah. So what we were saying earlier, and I've experienced this just in regular communities or board of directors or groups, is that getting along with people, right? So this evolution of human consciousness seems to be about finding harmony amongst each other, where there's only one rule, in my opinion, which is don't initiate harm against somebody or their property. And other than that, I don't really care about someone's beliefs or, non-beliefs or whatever. Just don't initiate harm against me. I promise not to initiate harm against you. And this is a very exciting idea. I've become very liberated. I don't believe government's a legitimate organization. I believe we're all kings and queens. We're all equal, and nobody has authority to use force against me or you, especially our children. So the challenge is too many chefs in the kitchen makes it too hard to cook. So is that been your experience as well? Or where would you say intentional communities fails and homesteads are, I guess, succeeding or ideal?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely, I mean, too many chefs in the kitchen is a wonderful example of it, because everybody has their ideas, everybody has their different personalities. And when you're all forced to work together in intentional communities, hits much more of a, I would say, they try ones that are like unanimous consent, but how do you get everybody into a unanimous consent? You can know how hard that is. And the more you add to it, the worse it gets. Or then you go into democracy, but then you don't have, not everybody's on the same page, and others are resentful of making that choice or whatever. Or you have one who's the ultimate leader of the place, but then you have a challenge because the others, as I said, they're not sovereign. And so you're creating an inequality of how they don't have the same ability to make their decisions that the one who has the ultimate choice does. So by having the homesteads, everyone gets to have that sovereignty. As you say, everyone has the right to make their choices, but you have a place that you have that on. Even though with homesteads, I'll say, one of the things we have to come to an understanding as a society is there's still shared common spaces. Say it's your own homestead, but what are you putting in the air? Are you, if you do a burn, for example, or you're spreading something that smells bad, you actually need to be aware that that is common space that's going over to your neighbors. Or sound pollution, right? If you're playing music super loud, especially recorded music. Acoustic music usually is a whole different thing in people's acceptance of it. But even that, loud parties, it's like there's actually a lot that we need to understand how to have consideration for the people we're working with. But all of those, I would say, still comes down to if you have that space that's yours, to know that you can within that. And it also allows you to be free to listen to God, right? If God tells you, like, you need to do that in that space, you don't need to go ask permission from somebody else to do that there. And when you're stuck in an intentional community, then you often can't listen the same way to your guidance.
Yes. So that's a great point about the common spaces, air, sound, water, and everybody has their own ideas. And what I realized is that everybody's smart in their own way. Everybody has their own intelligences, their own experiences, and their own great ideas. But coming together and trying to get, let alone 2 people, but like 5 people, 8 people, 10 people, just like, oh, it's a headache. There's a school system called democratic school, and you might know of it. Summerhill in England and Sudbury schools out here in the US. So they do have that kind of, democratic meeting, and they do got to get not full consensus, but kind of like majority vote. It's kind of interesting. But in terms of like living on the land, and I think what more people are trying to do, what I think, because I see a big collapse coming, I see these criminals are being exposed on huge levels, the financial system, the medical system, the school system, the media system, all of it, they're all being exposed. So I think having independent food, independent water, independent energy, whether it's on my homestead or maybe you and I are neighbors. I mean, that's the idea that when I spoke with you, I'm like, that sounds good. Like, we don't have to be all on this, 10 acres or 50 acres and trying to get along. Like, I can get 5 or 7 or 10, and you can get 5 or 7 or 10, and we can be 5 or 10 minutes away, or maybe you're just on the next plot over, but trying to get consensus to vote everything in. It's just like, it's such a bureaucracy that would be self-created. So finding these types of ways to move quickly. And like you said, if spirit or God says, plant some, vegetables right there, or we want some other, chickens or something like that. It's like, great, let's go. We'll start doing it right now versus let's call a meeting and wait till Thursday. It's like,
Exactly.
when you get the inspiration, you got to go. That inspiration is a gift from God, I believe, where it's like you get that breath of air. Let's go. Take that energy, take that enthusiasm, and get to work. So what does Hawaii look like now? You said you were in Maine and you take a permanent vacation to Hawaii. Are you on land out there, and what does that look like, or how is that kind of dynamic working for you now?
Yes, we're very fortunate. My parents were able to buy land here in Hawaii. We have a family homestead. It started with a plot of used up land. The sugarcane industry was where we were. So our land literally had no trees, no birds, no earthworms in the soil. It was, like a hard red clay pot. I mean, that is what we started with to work with. We started in a tent with hoses that we laid out in the sun, hoping for some hot water in the very beginning part. We did the whole homestead experience, the pit in, for the toilet, like the whole deal. And, but with my parents' background and experience, we built a family homestead here. And as I said, we did many iterations of trying to make community work. I'll put in another interesting observation that I've gotten to watch over the years. This sort of adds to this and like why things are successful or not. When we started, we had a lot more success with the people who joined us in our vision than as the later years. And what I would say to that as part of the reason, I mean, everything's multifaceted, right? And it's partially to do with where our culture is today, is that when we started, we hardly had anything. We were building it from scratch. And so the people who were coming in and alongside us, we were basically living exactly the same. But as we kept building our sustainability, making our house better and better, we're all artisans. It's a family museum piece here. As that happened, the people who came looked at what we had and thought, even though they hadn't put in all those years, they should have exactly what we already had. And I would say that that's partially a society that's been built up of this victim mentality and entitlement mentality. And that makes it harder because, we're equal as sovereign beings. But we are not all equal in the amount of experience and dedication and skills that we have built up and how we've chosen our life choices. And so different ones of us, I'm not saying that we all have our gifts. So I don't mean it to sound like I'm saying people aren't equal. They are equal. Right. We're all given by God. But what we've built up and chosen to make of our lives is all different. And expecting to walk in and have the exact same thing that someone else who's dedicated, 30, 40, their whole life to, it's a different thing. And I've seen that as another thing, which is why I think it's switched even more to looking at the homesteads, because you have your homestead, you can make of it what you will. If you want to put in even more hours and make it productive, you're going to get that return there for you, and you have your choice.
Yeah, that's a great point, because this entitlement mentality comes from the statist belief, which is, the government owes me something, or anybody owes me something. And it's like, no, God gave you life as a gift, or your parents gave you life. And now it's up to you through personal responsibility. And I appreciate the equality as sovereigns, or I call it self-owners. We're all self-owners. And like you said, the experience, the decisions, the self-discipline, the dedication, that's what distinguishes the people who, in my opinion, have abundance, and people that have great things, and people that don't. And that's so difficult because that requires the inner work of my mind, my soul, my spirit, my heart, spirituality type stuff. And it's scary for some people. I was raised, kind of in a Christian household, and there was eternal hellfire was put on me, and I'm like, terrorized. And then later on, I kind of evolved, and I'm like, I don't believe in that. I'll take what I like from the Bible. I'll take what I like from different religions, but it's like me becoming a whole human being is up to me, and our listeners, it's up to you too. There's nobody who is your ruler. You are your own, I don't know, master in some way, right? Like there's no one else. And so it's a double-sided coin with freedom and personal responsibility. And this homestead idea is big. Like I literally just planted my first garden last year and I'm on my second year now. And I'm realizing how ignorant I am, how lacking skills and I am. I'm like, man, I got to do a lot of work. So now I'm going to workshops, I'm meeting some of the people and, starting to read and taking classes. And I'm like, wow, I went to public school. Unfortunately, I wasn't as blessed as you to be free as a young child. And I went through the consumer system, that corporate system where there is no self-reliance like it was here in America in the 1700s, 1800s. The bureaucracy was very small. And now this thing has gotten out of control. So this self-reliance seems to be a huge necessity now. And it's like, where do you begin? So what would you advise new homesteaders to start or how to begin? It sounds like your family's been doing it for 20 or 30 years. And where should new homesteaders begin to have, this type of independent food or water or anything that you might have no experience in creating?
That's really going to depend on your personal place of where you're at. I mean, if you're in a city building, you can start growing sprouts on your counter, like the idea is to just look at where are you at and what can you add into your life. And that will be different for everyone. Like, you're able to start a garden and that's fantastic because it's going to actually grow a significant quantity of your produce. And you'll notice the vitality and the taste and the nutritional value you get from something you grew yourself versus what's already in the store that's been dead for X number of days or weeks to get there to you. It's going to be a whole different experience. So look at where you're at. Can you grow sprouts if you don't have anything else? Do you have a windowsill? Can you start with a windowsill garden? Do you have a porch? Can you put pots on your porch, right? Do you have a little bit of land? Even if you don't own it, when we first started here, we rented a house for a year and the landlord said that grudgingly, we could put in a garden as long as we got rid of it when we left. So my mother literally planted a garden that we enjoyed while we were there. And when we left, we dug it all up and turned it back to lawn because that was our agreement because he didn't want a garden there. But we did it. We put that effort in because my mother knew, all the way back to then that eating fresh out of the garden was that important and she loved it. So, a lot of things are, when you think you can't do it, you probably can if you're going to be creative and if you're willing to do the work. And then if you are fortunate enough to actually own your land or, last year we were both there, Joel Salatin was talking about, there are farmers who are looking for people to pass their farms on to who are actually going to farm and have this vision of sustainability. So get in touch with circles like that, see how you can get yourself in the position that you can have your land and have your sustainability and find the community around you. And then another point you made that I loved, something we're doing here is you don't have to do everything yourself on your homestead. Like that's one of the things we're doing with our group around here is being aware of who has which resources. Like one of our people, we call a Liberty group that meets and talks and is on this whole thing. And he has cows. He's a cattle farmer and he's a fisherman. And then there are others who do different types of farmings and beekeeping. And, we have animals, we have rabbits and ducks and chickens in addition to our gardens. And everyone can do their different thing, right? And then if each other has that resource, if you're working as a community, you can know, what, I can't handle this animal or I can't handle gardening this particular type of thing, but I'll trade you. I'm growing this and I'll give you this and you give me that. And you can work together as a community within what your resources, your abilities, and your skills are.
Yeah. Now, do you work out the trade ahead of time? Like, for example, like ducks, like Jack Spurko, he taught me that last year was like ducks are really good because they release their fecal matter on the land and they eat snails and they're good meat, and they have good eggs. And it's just like, wow. So he sold me on ducks are like better than cows almost, So do you say, yeah, right. So it's like, do you negotiate that and say, I'm going to, like next season, I'm going to give you so many ducks or eggs or something, or it's kind of like, hey, I got 24 things, let's trade for some beef or something. It's just a very simple trade.
That's a really great question and one that's actually very much up in our group right now of figuring these things out. So there's a whole bunch of different things that factor into this as you start to deal with trading, right? And this is a topic, I say, we haven't perfected it. We're working and we're adjusting as things happen.
Yes.
So some things are just really easy. You just sort of give back and forth. And I'll put a caveat on there. One of the other things we really learned, you can give to the givers. Even if they don't give back to you specifically, you know they're giving out and the circle is going around. You want to be very careful you do not give to the takers, because all they will do is take and take from everyone and drain everyone. And so that is one of my nuggets of observation. And so we have certain things that we all give freely. It's like, I have abundance of this, you bring it and you offer it. And those things are just given. Then there's other things that, like, for example, our eggs, we put a specific price on them. So people can simply buy the eggs from us, because currently the cost of feed and just hard costs that we have to buy and put in that are directly attributable, we want to make sure those are covered, right? So we've done a thing with that. So we put in different categories, different types of production from our land. We've also been talking about, because we want to move away from fiat, some of us are getting really into, at least internally, using silver as payment instead, right? Or it might be services, but even services, you have to be aware, one person, like I've always had this a lot as a fashion designer in my clothing line, people want to do trades with me, but they want to give me a skills-based trade, and then they want to trade for my clothing. But I have hard costs of fabric and machinery. So every piece I give, I'm giving dollars, not just my skills and wisdom. And so these are things you have to figure out together, how you compensate, and each one is an individual choice.
That's a great point. Yeah. So silver is a great way to trade, because it's, small and it has value, and there's the medicinal value and the electronics value. There's actually innate value. So when fiat goes to zero, as all fiat does, you have something of value, and anything else of value can be a trade too, right? Like seeds, or dehydrated meat or something like that. But I think for the listener, you want to begin thinking, what do you have of value that if all the fiat, all the Federal Reserve notes paper goes to zero, as it will probably in our lifetime, what are you going to do? What is your plan? And maybe you have, like, say you're a masseuse or you're a chiropractor or something, maybe you can have a certificate. And like you say, if somebody trades a service for hard physical goods, there's got to be something else. Or maybe there's let's say your fashion design is worth $50, and because you have hard costs, maybe somebody gives you a certificate of $100, as a chiropractor or something, because you have real cash in the materials, whereas they're given their time. So this is, I think, one of the questions where people begin to start thinking creatively. How can you add value? I love that you said about give to givers, because takers will just drain you. It's very important that people realize is that we're starting to raise our consciousness, and we're able to identify who has the good heart, who wants to give. And this is, as an unschooler, you learn that you're responsible, right? It took me a while to get out of the school system and college and all this stuff. And then, like, eventually I got into self-development. I learned I'm responsible. That's one of the most powerful phrases that you could say. And, you got that at a young age. So helping people realize that they're responsible for your health, your wealth, your relationships, all of that. And yeah, that's great. It's wonderful if you have this, personal empowerment mindset versus the entitlement. Oh, I'm a victim, I can't do anything. And there's a great quote by Sun Tzu. He wrote The Art of War. And he said, the supreme art of war is to defeat your enemy without fighting them. And I see so many people in the freedom or liberty movement, and they're kind of like, oh, what are you going to do? They're defeated already. And the energy that I got from you, and of course, Joel Salatin and Paul Wheaton, Spurko, John Bush, Derek Rose, all those guys, was like, we can do it. We can figure it out. And that's why I love going to these events, because I get to meet champions like you. And you brought up a great point with Joel Salatin and Paul Wheaton. The program, I can't remember if it's Salatin or Wheaton, maybe it's Wheaton, but he has a book called SKIP. And I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's basically like all these homesteaders out there, ranchers, farmers, they're getting older and their children are mainstreamers and they don't want the farm. They don't want the ranch. They want to give their property and all their assets on the land to somebody who's going to do something with it. And so there's a process that you can go through in the book. And the first step is to carve a spoon out of wood. I thought that was a great thing, but there's these different steps, right? To prove your worthiness. You can't just show up and say, hey, I'm going to take over a 50-acre farm and ranch. And they're like, well, who are you? It's like, for me, I couldn't do that. You know, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to begin. So I'm putting in the work now so I can learn. Hopefully in the next few years, I will be prepared and I can learn from people like you and other people that, you know, independent food is so important. We saw Jim Gale there as well, you know, with Food Forest Abundance. So I love his idea with perennial fruits and vegetables, and he's just doing an amazing job down there in Florida. So does your setup, would you say like you're fully independent on your homestead, or like how independent, you know, or what's your goal on your homestead, I should say? You know, we have different goals.
We're working towards as much independence and sustainability as we possibly can. And we've made incredible progress since 2020, actually. That was when my mother and I it was our sort of social hour. We go to the local farmers market and see all our friends and community. And when they put in a mask requirement to be in an outdoor organic farmers market, my mother was like, that's it. I am growing everything that we are eating for produce.
Right.
And that really spurred another entire level of sustainability. I mean, we always had a garden, you know, it was, as I said, it was more social for us than the food, but you know, you get the things that we didn't have and whatever. And so that has been a huge step up. And then we really upped the animals again. As I said, I actually plug for ducks. I love ducks. I've been keeping ducks since I was like 10 years old. I sold duck eggs. I would bring them with me to choir in a bag and sell them as a young entrepreneur, like 10 years old. I would come with my bag. Who wants to buy duck eggs this week? But they're awesome. They were part of how we rebuilt the soil here, and we had a horrible slug problem. But we've also now added in chickens, which chickens are much meaner than ducks. I could tell you a lot about the different ones, but in terms of sustainability, the more varieties you have, the more you have resilience for things that might happen. So that is always a consideration. Like if you put it's a version of not putting all your eggs in one basket, the more things that you have. So we have the ducks, the chickens, the rabbits. So they're a lot of dual purpose of meat, eggs. Rabbits are also fertilizer for the garden because rabbit manure is phenomenal because it doesn't burn. You can use it right away instead of like horse or cow manure, which needs a process before it is safe to put directly on. So we've done a lot of that. We have citrus orchards. We have other orchards, it's tropical fruits, you know, bananas and avocados. And so we're working to put in as much as we can in sustainability. And as I said, that's where we're also working with other people. Like we don't have the land to do cows. We'd love to, but we can't. We don't have that much here at this time. So, you know, working with who can you work with as a team and say, okay, well, I have all of this. I can give you produce and, you know, work in this and get that exchange. So I would say at this point, we eat basically all of our produce from the land. We're trying to make it so if things stopped, like the boats stopped coming to Hawaii, we could succeed and keep going. And, you know, that's another interesting truth about homesteading. So currently what I would say is we have systems in place and we have tried to prepare enough that if things went down, we could up the quantity of those systems to be fully sustainable. But as it is currently, I still work as a fashion designer and as a teacher. I work beyond a full-time job, just as my entrepreneurship. My brothers are both working their jobs. You know, we don't have the time to be a full self-sustained farm because we're earning income to pay the general expenses that you're stuck in the rat race of the way they've got everything systemized right now. Yeah. And so we need to earn in those extra things. So how we planned it as a family is if everything goes down, I would say if and when, but you know, optimistically, you never will, but preparing, then we could switch because suddenly our work would dry up because people wouldn't have if the collapse happened, we could switch, and by the time we'd run out of what we've already prepped for, we would be self-sufficient. And that's how we're planning it, because we're not currently and don't have the manpower to be a self-sufficient 100%, though we do eat, all of our produce comes off the farm, our eggs, we have meat birds. We don't do that as a full-time. We do buy some meat, but we could.
That's great. Now, you mentioned a Liberty group, and I think that's really smart. I'd like to maybe learn, well, so you have your homestead, and you mentioned a cattle guy or a fish guy. What was that process of meeting him or them, or what was your setup to build this Liberty group or build relationships with other homesteaders? How'd you find them?
This is a wonderful island in that it is small and people are connected to each other. It's been very interesting. We'd actually started, my mother and some friends, pre-2020, it was in 2019, a little group of people who they were just going to meet once. Everyone was busy with their own projects, and they're all got their own gardens and farms and stuff, but they wanted a place to talk where they wouldn't be excommunicated for having divergent opinions from mainstream, right? And so they got together and they had such a wonderful time that they decided they had to do this again because it was so much fun to just be free to speak so easily. And that continued and was starting to really happen, and people started to get wind, and they're like, well, can I join? I want to talk too. And you find all these people you didn't even know, because talk about the the censored majority. That's really been a lot of our country. And, that's really started happening in 2016, that people started catching on to that. And then the lockdowns hit in 2020, and they were very extreme. I live on the island of Kauai. We actually were more restricted and less restricted, actually, than the other islands, I would say. We never had the vaccine passports, but we had a longer than any of the others. We were shut down with quarantines to come on, and you had, first it was 14 days for a very long time, then it was cut down as the CDC cut it down, and then they allowed you in if you took the jab, then you were allowed to come in without all of that. But those of us who wouldn't do such a thing, well, we had all this other rigmarole. So that bonded together a whole bunch of people who were protesting the tyranny of the government coming in, and we started finding a whole new community. Some of the people are people we've known before, and some of them were brand new people that got brought together through these shared values and awareness of what was actually happening in the world, and the plan and how they were implementing, and the wealth redistribution, and the getting people used to more tyrannical measures, because, well, I can accept this, I can do that, right? And so I would say word of mouth for a lot of it, because we certainly never advertised what we were doing, and wouldn't. Actually, this is the most public I've ever been about it, is to get on an interview and mention we've done all these things. But that's how a community works. And I would say, if you're looking for it and you don't have that around you, I found people who told me they didn't have any of that. And then I started asking, I said, well, have you looked into, are there gardeners nearby you? Is there a community garden? Is somebody doing a raw milk share? The kind of things, like, start looking. Is somebody just talking about ideas? Are there meetups? And you'll probably find that if you get off of thinking, oh, I've only looked in the computer to find something, there's things around you, and you start going there and you start dropping little words, you test back and forth to see how far each you are. You'll find a lot more people that are on page with you than you realize.
Yeah, that's right. I'm so glad you said the censored majority. It's like, all these people feel isolated, and it's like, no, we believe in freedom of choice. We are the majority. There's so many people that will, get the jab or accept the lockdowns. But even those people that got the jab, God bless them and wish you well and hope you recover and there's no trouble. Some of them regret it, and they're like, I'm never going to get it again. And some people said, I got the injury, and we're like, yeah, this is a big problem. And so what we did in Santa Cruz, California, they shut down the churches, the restaurants, the bars, the cafes, and we're like, what is going on? So we gathered at the beach. Every Saturday we had a bonfire. I called it the Voluntary Solutions Bonfire, because you're a positive person, so am I. And so we have a bonfire. We don't want people come and bring in all this negative problems and complaining. We're like, okay, got any solutions? Because it is crazy time right now. And so what that did for us is it created strong community, strong relationships. And I think you're right. Somebody, if you're looking for community, you feel isolated, go on a meetup, go on to Facebook, go on to Telegram, go to your local health store, go to your local farmers market and begin asking questions. And for me is I will put my hand out there and say, hi, my name's Dave. Nice to meet you. And just put yourself out there and see what happens. There's good people on the planet right now. And these coercive systems, they're going down. They're being exposed. And, you're a visionary, Chanterelle. I am the listener, probably the audience. If you're listening to this, you see what's going on. It's like, how are we going to solve the problem? I don't know. We don't have all the answers other than freedom and personal responsibility and independence and using our intelligence, using maybe our spiritual power from our ancestors or source, nature, God, or something. But there's something really beautiful happening. And like you said, like your Liberty group and our voluntarist group, we get together and we would just talk and have a great time and have like a little potluck and have tables. And we started co-creating this vibrant community. And it's like just getting started. Now I left the area. Now I'm in a more conservative county. And there's other groups up here, actually. There's people who are doing independent homesteading, foraging, cheese making, goats. It's so funny. So I went to this lunch and, we went around the circle and said, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I do. And just met these like 20 people. And the one lady, she has goats. And so I went and talked to her. I said, hey, I've never had goats before, but I'm curious. I'd like to learn. And she says, okay, well, call this person, right? She says, I don't have any right now. Call this person. So I called him up. I said, hey, I'm new. I don't have goats. I'm going to learn. She's like, well, since you haven't had goats before, I don't feel comfortable selling you my goat because I want my goat to go to a good home. I'm like, I totally get it. I totally understand. So there's a process of if you raise a goat, you want the goat to go to a good family. You don't want the goat to suffer. So I was like, oh, so there's really like wise breeders and wise people that, and we're going to do an interview at some point. I said, let's do an interview. And I want to know what your requirements are to buy a goat from you because I don't have any idea about any of this stuff. So let's learn. And as a self-directed learner, you know that life is about learning. It's always happening. And we're always, acquiring new knowledge and experience. And it's not in a classroom, mom and dad's out there. It's life. And, being curious and being open-minded to admit that we don't know what's going on and can you help me and finding good people. So if you don't have some people out there, I recommend you start a group, find a group, go out there and see if you can make new relationships because these systems are so out of control and tyrannical right now. And now it's like the story of the emperor with no clothes. Right. It's like, we can see it now. Now it's like, we got to get to the gym and like get our muscles, get our thinking muscles, our courage muscles, our learning muscles, and start to really look inside and find good relationships, find new friends, because a lot of my family members, they have no idea what's going on and they could care less. And it's like, you know what? I wish you peace and love. I'm going to go talk with Chanterelle and Jim Gale and John and Derek and, the guys that we mentioned. Like, these are my buddies. These are my people who can see what's going on. And I'll make a place at my table for my family, if they want later, if they decide to be harmonious and not use coercion. So this is a very exciting thing to begin to learn about. Any other things about the homestead? What would you say is the most challenging thing you've come across in your own homestead experience and with your family?
That's a really good question. And I would say that you're always going to be thrown curveballs. What it is specifically, it will seem like that's the most challenging one in the moment. And then later you're like, oh, that was easy. I got through that. No problem. I would definitely say that, you just have to be aware that things will happen. You'll get a new species of animal and like we made a mistake. We had chickens last year. We were starting doing chickens instead of just the ducks. and we'd put shade cloth on, and I didn't realize the shade cloth was insufficient in the sun, and I lost birds to heat stroke. And it was, horrible walking out there and seeing a dead bird and going, what did I do wrong? And you'll get things like that, and you have to learn. And what we're always saying right now is, well, it's really nice to be learning now. Well, it's not, life or death to me that I have this laying chicken. I can afford to make a mistake right now. And that's one of the nice things about where we are currently. If you wait until everything's gone down and you try and learn then, you're going to really regret it when you don't have that bird anymore, So there are all sorts of little things like that. You do your best. The number of systems we've evolved that, we started one way and we've done a complete 180 in how we now look at it or do it. That's been another thing about looking like at the layout of land. Overall, I would say that Spirit took care of us. We've done really well, but there are things we look and we're like, we never planted that there. If we'd known we were going to go this direction later, we have moved so many things. We've redone. Fortunately, my dad's a builder. His work was, designing and building homes. We laughed about the number of musical rooms we played here of, just totally revamping for what is currently up and what we're doing and interested in. So I would just say, you just have to be ready to meet everything with a can-do attitude, because truly you can. Usually the thing that says, I can't, I had no choice, it means it was a difficult choice. Like, the number of people who say I had to take the jab. Well, you could have lost your job, right? You could have not traveled to that place. And I think that's one of the most disempowering things we teach people is we teach them to say, I can't, I had to, have no choice. That's not usually true. And so coming to everything with the idea that you can do it, and that also the thing to look at is it's a gift. Every challenging experience I have been through in my life, I can't say that they've been pleasant, that I've enjoyed them, but I can look back and go, I learned that from it. And it was a gift to me. And in the end, there's not a single one of them that I wouldn't have had happen to me because of how much I grew from that experience. And if you go into an experience that comes at you with the knowledge that somehow this is going to be a benefit to you in your life, or in how you can help others out of it, the wisdom you'll gain, and taking that attitude and a can do, yes, I can make this work. I will learn something from it. I will be better out of it. That will really serve you as you go.
Beautiful. Right. That's a true educated mind. Listeners, you can see the self-directed mindset, which is, it's not just for me, it's for teaching other people and learning. And there's a lot of value here. I don't see the benefit maybe now, but there will be a benefit, and I will triumph over this. And eliminating I can't or I have to, so powerful. I mean, I interviewed the author of the book Conscious Language, and he was very meticulous about words. And it's like, that is a superpower. What you speak forth is important. Don't think your words don't matter. They matter a lot. One thing I would ask you as a self-directed learner, AKA unschooler and young entrepreneur or an entrepreneur from a young age, what is your philosophy on mistakes and failure?
Mistakes are opportunities to learn to do something better, and failure is the same thing. There is no such thing as failure unless you actually give up and don't keep learning and trying.
That's right.
Failure is an opportunity to be better.
Yes, right. And this is, like you said, go ahead.
And then I was also just going to add on to that, the personal responsibility thing that you've been mentioning. And I want to encourage people that you don't realize how much power you actually have. A beautiful example of this to me was I went in 2016 to the Truth About Cancer conference that was done. And I've never forgotten this talk that Jeffrey Smith gave on GMOs. And he wanted people to see, because everybody was doing this, trying to get this legislature, and our island had gone through the same thing of, getting GMO labeling laws and, getting people to put on the package what it is, or the right to know, which is what we had here, what was being sprayed at what time. And people were so on, getting through legislation to stop or change things. And he said, you don't realize it, but the tide has already turned in America. When Campbell's Soup is making an organic soup brand because they've realized they've lost out on $1 million of market share, you're already winning. And people, you don't realize every time you go to the store and you put your dollar down, You voted, you took responsibility in what happened. If you chose to wear a mask during this last thing, you said, all right, I agree, I will submit to the mask policies. You know, every choice you make furthers one world or the other world. So being aware, and I'm not saying we can all be perfect, because you know, you try too hard and you burn yourself out. So you have to be aware we do live in this world. You have to make your personal compromises, but being aware that you're making that choice and that you are voting and bringing in the world with every choice you make. If you're using a cell phone all the time and saying, I can't live without it, versus realizing, what could I do to avoid using that all the time? You know, the same thing with AI. If you're using AI, you're bringing in an AI world. Is that the world you want for yourself and your children? You have to decide as you do it, because I hear everyone saying, oh, there's no way to stop it, it's coming. That's not true. We are all making it come, or we are stopping it by what we choose to do every day.
That's right. Yeah, never forget how powerful you are as an individual, because one individual can make a huge difference. You know, look at Derek Bros or John Bush or Spurko or Salatin or Wheaton or Gale, you know, you or me. It's like, we're just one guy, one gal, and look what we can do. And also the other story of the Wizard of Oz, right? Looking behind the curtain, it's the big bad Wizard of Oz, and you see a little man with a microphone, you know. So the tyrants and the criminals, they control the fear and the mind of humanity, mainstream at least, through media. And if you're able to see that this is just a marketing or a PR campaign for these corporations, you don't fall into it. And there's actually other journalists out there. There's independent voices who are doing great content on Rumble or other platforms, and of course YouTube and BitChute and Odyssey. And there's places that are less censored than other places, but you are powerful, and you really want to consider that you have been trained like a dog or an animal to be this small, like a mouse, I'm so afraid. But my conclusion is that we are spiritual beings, and we are immortal, and we have this body, and maybe there's other places that we go, but there is something magical happening in consciousness. And I can feel the rise everywhere I go, in Florida and Texas, Mexico, China, Nevada, Arizona. I can feel it. So that's why I'm such a madman about it, and being so positive and optimistic. Yeah, it looks bad, and yeah, the systems are going to crash at some point. And great, we're going to build it up. And this time we're going to build it on consent. We're going to build it on peace. We're going to build it on harmony versus these coercive organizations that have been dominating for so long. So there are very strong advantages to, you know, being independent and to figuring out this stuff. And you're powerful. Like, that's the thing. You're strong. You're amazing. But if you don't accept that, if you don't embrace it, you know, we can see Chanterelle, you're powerful, and we can see myself perhaps, or other people, but like your purchases make a difference. You say, I don't have $1 million, I don't have $1 billion. You don't need to. You got $1, you got $5. Maybe instead of taking it to the mainstream corporation, maybe you go to the farmer's market. Maybe you buy eggs from your neighbor. I mean, how good is it to feel when you buy food from your neighbor? You take some silver, or you take some of your own value, and you give it to somebody that you know, versus, you know, some nameless corporation out there that doesn't care about the community, doesn't care about the planet. So it's really amazing that people are like starting to realize, okay, my vote with my money matters. So this is a funny thing, because they always say, you know, go contact your representatives, or, run for office or something like that. I'm like, okay, I respect anybody taking action, but my vote is with my money, with my energy, with my words, with my focus, with my time, with my energy, because we have these limited resources. So why give it to the mega corporations if you don't have to? You know, of course, I got the cell phone, so I got a Samsung. So it's like, okay, I need the phone, but like, maybe I don't need the phone, you know, but there's some ways to maneuver on the planet to create abundance and to create solutions. One of the best ones I've seen is independent grocery store. I interviewed Mike Cullum. He has a private grocery store out here in California because they locked down all the grocery stores. Up in Northern California, they have a private health clinic, and they're under a PMA, some structure like that. It's like, I got so much respect for those people for creating something, and for my school, I do early high school graduations and get the kids out of the school system. And there's a bunch of need to like expand and grow and scale up. It's like, okay, I got to learn these things. There's so much to learn once you realize, like, man, I'm not prepared for most of this stuff. How do I do it? So I want to go back to the chickens and the ducks, because I've never. Oh, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to add one thing on to what you said, and then let's go to chickens and the ducks. Be aware when you're spending those dollars as well, that you don't want to use a credit card. Think about this. If you go to your local store and you pay, $50 to them, if you're using a credit card, those credit cards have between, average of 3% taking, right, on everything that they're doing. So your local store, got $48.50, or whatever out of it, random number. So then they only have $48.50 to next spend in the community, right? And you go down the chain until that $50 that you spent in your community, even if everyone spent it in your community, $0 is left in your community. It has all gone to a credit card corporation at the top that has no care for you or your community. And that's where you've actually spent your money. So being aware of, even while you're spending your dollars, how are you spending your dollars to support local?
That's a great point. Yeah, 3% and then 3% and then 3%, and it starts to chop it up, and you're like, where's the money? It's like, yeah, the big six corporations got the money, and it's not at the local level. So this is, I think, what's exciting is finding local producers. I'm actually going to a beef event, a cattle event here in about a couple of weeks. Total stranger. I went to one other like ranch event there just to see what's going on. And I'm like, these are good people, right? These are like good-hearted, hardworking people. And I want to give these people my money. And I'm going to go make a lot of friends. I'm going to go get cell phone numbers and emails and become friends and be a giver, right? Not a taker, where you're like, hey, I'm trying to sell you something, versus what can I give you? Here's a resource that I can give you. Einstein had a great quote. He said, do not seek to be a man of success, seek to be a man of value. I said, oh, buddy, that's the game right there. So listeners, consider becoming a woman of value, a man of value, and help your children learn to become this way as well. Because then once you give and give and give, then eventually people recognize, hey, that's a good dude. That's a good lady. I want them on my team. Because when everything goes down, we're going to be looking for good team members. And we're looking for team members now, right? We want to find good people, trusting people. You don't have to have $1 million, but if you have a good heart and you're learning and you're studying and focusing, that's more than $1 million. That's like $1 billion. That's so valuable in the community, whether it's on a homestead or just locally. And you can do it. So don't feel like you have to have all this cash. You have a mind, you have a body, and this is a really beautiful thing. Okay. Any comments on that? Or should we go to the ducks? I wanted to check back.
Go for your ducks and chickens. That was great.
So I don't have any chickens or ducks yet, but I will have ducks. I'll probably have both, but I haven't butchered a duck or a chicken. So what is the learning process? Is that very hard, or is it very simple? Or what has been your experience on butchering ducks and chickens and rabbits?
So I admit that I have a very strict rule. I will take care of the animals and I will cook the animals, but I do not butcher the animals. My older brother is the butcher of the animals for me.
Good.
I will say that he does a wonderful job. He has learned, there are certain tricks to make it, as humane as possible for the animals. I will say that, I first would have had doubts about, eating my own animals, it just feels like I raised that, and I started first with roosters because you have extra roosters. They're really mean. And I did name them. I have a system. It's called dinner 1, dinner 2, dinner 3, dinner 4, etc. Or if they're really bad, then they become bully or meanie. It's a lot easier to eat bully or meanie on your table. Don't give them a cute name. But I wasn't sure about how I would feel about eating animals that I'd raised, but I have to say, when my mother and I cooked one of like the first time that we did it, and we put it on our table, and it was meat from our land, vegetables from our land, a vast majority, all right, some of the salt and pepper and, didn't come from land, but the herbs did. And it felt so good eating that meat and all those things. It's like you felt like you had a symbiotic relationship. I knew they'd had a beautiful life up until the end, and then it had been very clean and not in a horrible slaughterhouse. It's like it felt so right. And I felt like I was connecting with what my ancestors would have done, and that it was honoring the life of that animal, which in a homestead thing, you can't have too many roosters. They will peck the poor hens to death, trying to mate them. And you'll have bloody heads and all these problems and from overmating. And so it's part of actually helping the cycle of life work in a sustainable way on your homestead. And so I really loved the experience. And I've actually come to really appreciate eating meat that I raised. But I have to say, I can't truly speak to the butchering because I get out of that.
Got it. Very nice. That's good to know, right? Everybody has their own little squeamishes or things which they're comfortable with and uncomfortable with. It was so funny and crazy up where I'm at. It's kind of rural, and outside, we're not super close to the road, but we're like, I don't know, 100 feet or something. We heard a big crash, and we went out there, and it was like a 5-point deer, like this deer that got hit by a car, and we made sure the driver was okay. And all of a sudden there's this like fresh deer right on the side of the road, and we're just like, if I knew how to butcher that, I'd probably take that up to the garage and do that thing. So now I'm like, okay, I gotta learn how to butcher a deer, because that might happen again. And that's, I don't know, 150, 200 pounds of meat. That's got like to be I don't know, 2 or 3 seasons of food right there. But because I didn't have the skills, I'm just like, I missed out. That was kind of like a gift from God, like manna from heaven. And it's just like, I just didn't know how to do it, where to begin, da, da, da. So I'm like, okay, so now I'm going to learn these things. And this is relevant for some of you guys out there. What skills would help you in your life, and maybe you got stopped by something. There was an opportunity that came up, and you're like, oh, if I knew how to do that, I could seize this opportunity. Because there's going to be, there's so much opportunity right now. The internet is full of opportunity. Now it's looking for a man or a woman who's going to take leadership and initiative and proactivity to seize it, to go after it. And so that was my experience. I'm like, man, I got to learn how to, butcher this deer. And, like, I'm a little bit squeamish about it too, but then it's kind of like, oh, meat. I love meat. So, I think I'll get over it. I just got to figure out like where to cut it, how to hang it. Some of these basics, I feel like it's really basic. But it sure is nice when somebody's there to like, guide you and help you. As kind of like what you're doing with us, here on this conversation about the homesteads and about the intentional communities. We're coming to the top of the hour. Is there any final thoughts or any key things that we didn't touch on that you want to be sure that the people hear, or you want to emphasize something that maybe we didn't go deep on, for somebody out there who realizes they want to get out of the urban area, get in something rural, or have a dream of having this homestead? I think 5 acres is a great, beautiful thing. So once you have the land, now you got to figure out all this stuff. So any other areas you want to share or touch upon?
I think we actually have done a beautiful job of giving a covering. I would just sort of reiterate the things is do it. That's really the end message is, if you want it to happen, you need to make it happen, and to know that you can, and that you will inevitably have challenges and things that go wrong, and learning from them and getting better from them is what it's all about. And if you can find people to be mentors, like as you mentioned, it's helpful to have someone come in, like the butchering. The man, actually, I mentioned the cattle farmer, he's the one who came in and helped my brother do the first butcherings, and just be there and show him the way he'd learned it so he could have that. And now he goes on his own and does it himself. And which comes from basically my background of being unschooled, find mentors,
Yeah.
look up, you'll find them around you, or look up online. The internet is such a valuable resource these days of, people putting out their years of accumulated wisdom, and it's right there if you search it up, and then try it and do it because you can.
Yes, 100%. Are there any books or videos or teachers or anybody who really inspired you or influences? And it can be, in your fashion or your, business or your homestead, anything that you want to drop that like this person is worth checking out or really helped you out?
Well, I had personal mentors in my life, like my sewing teacher. She was instrumental in fostering and assisting my love of sewing to become something that was turned into a career for me. My piano teacher, I've had amazing people in my life that have truly helped me. But if you're looking for books that you can read that aren't these personal, dear to me people, I would say if you're looking at homeschooling, you read the works of John Taylor Gatto. He is a phenomenal author, and he was a teacher from the public to the private schools, from Ivy League to the ghetto. He has a wealth of knowledge, and he really explains the history of our schooling, what it's designed for, which is create good factory workers who believe they can't do things and believe they should just work for a corporation, because that's what the school was designed to do. We didn't get into schooling, but I always say that the first thing you need to understand is that when people say, I want to fix the school, I say, no, you need to understand the school system is not broken. It's working exactly as it's intended to do.
That's right.
If you're looking there, I'd read his books. They're phenomenal. There are others. To what we were talking about, the homesteading today, I think Joel Salatin, Wheaton, Jim Gale, these are all phenomenal resources. Marjorie Wildcraft, there's a whole set of people to read. If you're looking at holistic health, I love the 5 doctors. If you're wanting to figure out how to get rid of the effects of those jabs, Sherry Tenpenny and Lee Merritt and, Carrie Made and Christian Northrup, there's a whole set of them. Larry Plevsky. Of course, we just lost Dr. Buttar, but there's a whole set of them that are wonderful people. And yes, may he rest in peace. But yes, I would say go out and look, and from the ones, you'll find the others that will lead you to the next ones. But know that you can do it. You're an independent, sovereign being given to you by the Creator. You're not under anyone's rule. But you do need to be aware of your fellow people. Like, as we mentioned, the common spaces, just because you're a sovereign being, we are also all a sovereign group together creating this magical place.
Right. Yeah, that's a really key thing too, is like we're all connected, the water systems, the earth and the air. And I think we all can agree we want healthy water, clean air, clean water, clean land. So it's normally like the mega corporations that are, putting toxics in the land or in the air, the barium, strontium, aluminum in the air and all these things. So we're getting to the phase where it's like, okay, what's the solution? Maybe detox. You mentioned some resources there, because it's so disempowering to feel like there's nothing I can do. And it's like, we can do a lot. We are the creators. We are the creations, the sons and daughters of the Creator. Like, this is a big deal that we have consciousness. We're not just an animal like they teach us, in my opinion, the monkey or the dolphin or whatever. Yeah, they communicate, but like nobody's making computers, nobody's making cars. Like, it's the humans, it's us. So it's a beautiful thing. And I want to wrap up maybe one last story, because I was looking at your little bio here, which is you got your first teaching job at age 12. Would you share with us, please, what were you teaching and how did you get that job?
I was an assistant handwork teacher at one of the local private elementary schools. And I got that job because there had actually been a teacher in my life that helped me on handcrafts, and she needed assistance in the classroom and asked me to help her. And so I did. We were teaching hand sewing, knitting, and crocheting, different types of handcrafts. At that point, I also had my own Angora rabbits and was spinning the wool from the Angora rabbits. It's been my passion my whole life to do these things. And I stayed on with that job for 3 years, actually, through her and another teacher. And then at 15, it switched again. And by the end years, I knew more than the teacher. I was like the one who understood all this, because I was, I'd already been basically doing my own business, not my official one that I launched at 17. And so at that point, I said that I would be the main teacher, but I was done being the assistant teacher, who was really, I wanted the full experience of actually being the teacher who planned all the lesson plans and all of that.
Right.
and I totally understand this. Legally, they needed an adult in the classroom, and I was only 15. So I didn't qualify, even though my skills qualified perfectly, and I moved on from the job at that point. But that was my first payroll job, was working as an unschooler who had no degrees whatsoever at a local private school.
That's amazing. That's so glorious. I'm so honored to meet you and to connect with you. You said something that kind of cut out there. You said Agora rabbits or rapids. What was that?
They're Angora rabbits, and they are, if you've ever felt Angora wool, it comes from rabbits. It's a very soft, beautiful wool. And I kept those, I had 4 French Angora rabbits, and I would harvest the wool. And then I had both a drop spindle and a spinning wheel to spin the wool to turn into my knitting and crocheting projects.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's amazing. I could totally see you at 15. You're like, no, I want to lead. I want to teach. I got something to say, you know. And every child, I think, is like that. And it's so important that parents empower your children so they can, you know, grow up and be successful like you, and dynamic, and, you know, great communicator and loving soul. And this is the great self-ownership awakening. You know, this is the great freedom awakening that's happening. Homesteads seem to be the future, and maybe we'll come on and talk about, we'll do an update later, or maybe talk about your business or some other things. But thank you for taking some time, Chanterelle, and your website is chanterellecouture.com. We'll put that in the description. And any last words here? I know we kind of wrapped up, but anything else just to share? That we covered a lot, but
this was beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much. I have, you know, I think I'd love to do another one on homeschooling at some point, because I have a lot more to say on that topic that we couldn't possibly get into. But as the homesteads, as I said, I reiterate, go out and do it. You can.
Absolutely. I love the I can't do attitude. I think people can really feel your energy and strength, because this is what's happened. This is what is required. We are the creators. We are the ones we've been waiting for. There's nobody coming. It's going to be us creating, taking full responsibility. I wore the shirt specifically for the show, Absolute Freedom, which includes absolute responsibility. And you don't have to do it alone. You know, if you're nervous out there, if you're anxious, welcome to the club. We all are feeling this. So get into meditation, get into breathing, get into earthing, start to look within yourself, and you have the answers. You're connected to source. You're connected to the creator of all that is, and enjoy this beautiful earth. And hopefully you'll start a homestead soon. I think we'll talk about unschooling with Chanterelle another time, because there's so many cool stories I'm sure you can share. You mentioned John Gatto, who I was in business with and helped publish the Underground History book with, and just so much love for John Gatto. He hugely transformed my life with the help of Richard Grove to produce that film, and amazing, great people out there. So I want to thank you for spending some time, Chanterelle. I want to thank you, audience, for being here and for tuning in to the Freedom Lovers Show, where we are building a voluntary world, one relationship at a time, one homestead at a time. And we'll look forward to see you on the next show. Thank you, everybody.